How you doing? It's your boy BrogiNaric back again with another review. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the new Sylvester Stallone superhero flick, Samaritan, which recently dropped on Amazon Prime Video. And before I get into this review, I want to remind you to hit the like button, share and subscribe to the channel. We're still growing. We could use your help. And yes, I do have a new microphone. I'm testing it out in this video, so y'all let me know how it sounds. And thanks for doing so. I love the feedback. So, Samaritan was a film that I believe originally was going to go to theaters. I'm not sure, but once Amazon bought MGM, this is one of these films that they got, and they just put it on the service. And the film is really good. The premise is it's a superhero that disappeared after 25 years, and this one kid thinks he's a big super fan of him, and there's a conspiracy like that the superhero is still alive, but they thought he died. And he suspects that this older guy that lives in his apartment building is the hero, and he's trying to get him to, well, he's trying to see, what he's all about. And that's basically the synopsis of the film, or at least that's the synopsis if you watch the trailer. But when you actually watch the film, it gives you a little more backstory, and this is going to be like a non-spoiler review, but I'm going to get into spoilers later on. But the backstory is that there were these two brothers who had superpowers. They grew up, one became good, one became evil, and they both died. And now, 20 years later, or 25 years later, this kid thinks, he's a super fan, he thinks he's running to this superhero. And while that's going on, there's a crime boss who's trying to essentially do what the villain was planning to do years ago. He's trying to redo it again, and that brings the old guy that he kind of gets involved in having to save the city again because the kid gets involved. And it's an interesting concept. This movie was directed by Jules Avery, which I didn't know. He directed Overlord back in 2018, which was a really cool movie. It was essentially it's like one of the best video game movies that wasn't technically a video game. It kind of had like this Wolfenstein sort of Resident Evil vibe to it with Nazis and Nazi zombies versus American soldiers. So the movie stars Sylvester Stallone as Joe Smith. And, he's doing Sylvester Stallone. If you've seen any Stallone movie, he's doing the basics. And this is very much a straightforward action flick for him towards the end when he gets to the action. And the action is really good. I thought it was solid. And it really works that he's an older guy, but his character has superpowers. So when he's doing all this amazing, unbelievable stuff, there's like a reason for it. It's not just like, oh, he's the action hero, so he has to survive. Like, he at least has superpowers and he can do all this crazy stuff. And most of the way he used his powers was pretty cool. He's basically just super strong and indestructible to a degree. And then there's like a whole thing where he has a cool weakness, which I guess is not necessarily a spoiler, but whenever he's hurt, his body heats up and he has to cool himself down or his heart will explode. So I thought that was he's not just standard, oh, he's Superman and they needed a kryptonite or anything. Like, no, he has a weakness. And there's also another plot line that's like a device that can hurt him. I'm not going to get too deep in that until the spoilers. But I thought he was solid. Then there's the kid Sam Cleary, who's the little kid that lives in the apartment building, played by Javon Walton, who was on Euphoria, which I haven't watched, but he was also in season 3 of Umbrella Academy. And I like this kid. I think this was filmed before he did Umbrella Academy, and I must say I liked his acting a little bit more in Umbrella Academy instead of this film. But he's not a bad actor. But I thought it's like I could see the progression a little bit in his acting, but he's fine. He's the kind of nice kid in a rough area, but he's also a super fan of this superhero, and he wants to do good, but like this street life was kind of pulling him in because, him and his mom are poor. That's the thing. This whole city that they're trying to save is like super poor, like very poor. Most of the people in this city are very poor. His mom, played by Dasha Blanco, is like a nurse, and, they do overemphasize like these people are struggling, and that's the whole dichotomy between Samaritan, who was the hero who saved the city from his evil brother Nemesis, who was trying to destroy the city. But we find out through the villain of this movie, Cyrus, played by Pilu Asbeck. I'm saying that as best as I can. He was also in Overlord and on Game of Thrones, local street gang guy who's got these special made bombs that just come out of nowhere. They're essentially EMPs, but are also like explosives, and they can like black out the electricity. And he's starting this revolution, and the people are upset and they're poor and they need money, so they're just wrecking the city. And then he wants to black out the city, which is what Nemesis was going to do years ago before him and his brother died at this power plant explosion. And then they don't really expand upon like how is that the goal to bring jobs or money to the citizens. Like that didn't make sense. The movie does not try to expand upon that. And that's the other thing where they're like, this was Nemesis' plan, but they hint at it, but they don't explain what was his goal. And their origin story, they give you the origin story very early on. Part of the origin story. Like, we don't know how they got their powers, but what happened to them as kids. And it's pretty good. And I wish they would expand it more on that with the characters of, what happened to them as kids and how that led one evil and one good. They just tell you, they don't explain it. You find out that Nemesis was bad, but he was also kind of good because he was sort of protecting the downtrodden, as opposed to the Samaritan, who was kind of maintaining the status quo, which I thought was an interesting dynamic, but it doesn't expand upon it. Another problem that I had that I felt this movie was missing, which was this movie is reminiscent of, to me at least, very reminiscent of RoboCop in terms of you have this city that's run down, and then there was this hero that pops in, and he's, saving the people, but the people are still pissed off because, there's a big economic crisis and all of this stuff. It also reminds me of the Batman, which recently came out. And the problem is, in this movie, they tell you that there's an economic crisis. We see the people uprising, but we never see the opposition. We see the downtrodden, but we never see the rich people who are oppressing them. We never see the government official that's oppressing them, or the corrupt business like OCP and RoboCop, or the politicians and the lawyers like in the Batman. We never see those people. We see the cops, but even the cops are very much like the cops in RoboCop, where they're just blue-collar people who's kind of caught in a shitty situation just as much as the poor people. And when they're wrecking the city, they only seem to be wrecking the poor parts of town. Like, we don't see the lavish parts of town that these people should be rebelling against. So that whole plot line didn't really make much sense to me, because they didn't really hammer it home as well as they could have. It was interesting, but the execution was not great. And that's how I feel about the Samaritan film as a whole. It's like the execution is not as great as it was shown, but they had a lot of foundation that they could have built upon. The cinematography is fine. I thought most of the action was fine. Nothing too crazy. Joe gets jumped by this gang in an alleyway, or like in like a rundown town homeless alleyway or whatever. That was kind of cool. Right towards the end, where they're in this little warehouse, most of that was good. It's just Samaritan beating the shit out of goons and throwing them through walls and kicking them and all of that. Like that stuff was cool. One thing with the color palette and the cinematography, this is a very colorful movie if you love the colors teal and orange. If you love those two colors and various shades of them, very colorful film. They very heavily lean on teal and orange. I don't know why. It seemed a bit lazy, but it was the style that they went with. There are some moments where there are some sort of comic booky action shots and poses. Looks very good. The budget is mid to low budget. There's a scene where there's like some de-aging that looks like some like the top of the line PS3 graphics, I will say. Top of the line PS3 graphics for the de-aging on this, where we get to see a young Stallone. The side characters are pretty forgettable. They're fine, mostly just goons. They're okay-ish. But I think the villain should have been stronger, because the villain, like I said, the villain has a good angle. It's just, they would have showed more of the opposition that he was going against. There should have been like a third villain or like a secondary villain, like who's the evil politician, the evil company that's holding everyone down. And by the end of it, people are they're still fucked by the end of it. It's just, now that the crime boss is gone, it's like, we're still poor, but thanks, Samaritan. But they kind of just push that to the whole sort of political aspect of the people getting their lives together is very much pushed to the side with no real solution in sight, which is kind of fucked up. And I guess it's also to a degree realistic. I don't know. Overall, it's a solid film. It's a decent superhero movie. The scene when he gets hit by the car, I thought was very good in terms of showing how his powers work and how he was snapping his body. It was sort of gruesome. It was a lot more of him rebuilding his body together, which I thought was good. And also, he's older, so he's not as strong as he was. But I think it's a good time watching it, especially if you're into action films. You love Stallone, you love superhero stuff. I think it's worth checking out. If I was to give Samaritan a grade, I'd give it a C or a 5.5 out of 10. I could have went 6, but when I watched it, the more I thought about how they dropped the ball with so much stuff that could have made it even better. It was like, how did y'all do that? Like, it's right there. Like, this seems pretty obvious that you could have filled in those gaps. So yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say for Samaritan. Check it out. It's solid. It's a solid film. Not a hell of a lot coming out in the theaters right now, so check it out. And that's all I gotta say for Samaritan. And stay tuned for like some quick spoilers. So, spoilers. The opening of the film is literally the kid telling you their origins. There was these two brothers. They were all freakishly strong, and they would accidentally tend to hurt people. And the people in the town were pissed. They were so pissed that these kids were wrecking shit on accident that they waited for the family. It was like the two brothers and the mom and the dad. They waited for them to sleep. They boarded up their house and set that shit on fire, killing their parents. But the brothers survived because, they have superpowers. And one brother somehow decided to become a superhero after this happened. And the other brother sort of rightfully decided, fuck humanity, and became a villain. So we have these two brothers, Samaritan, Nemesis. One is mainly blue, the other is mainly orange. And they would do various things throughout the city, whether it was saving the city or wrecking the city. And then the brother, Nemesis, creates this weapon, this hammer, that's like infused with his powers and his hatred, and it's like the one device that can actually kill either brother. And there was this whole thing where he set up this trap for Samaritan at this power plant, and there was a big explosion, and they both seemingly died, and all the power went out. And this was 25 years ago, but there's conspiracies that Samaritan is still alive. Right then, as soon as the movie was like, there's two brothers, one was good, one was evil, I'm like, Stallone is actually the evil brother, right? Is this what we're doing? I'm like, this is where we're going, right? And then as soon as it shows the logo of the movie, it says Samaritan, but the hammer is right behind it, I'm like, yeah, he's gonna be the evil brother, right? Who's like trying to sort of get redemption or something. So as the movie goes on, lo and behold, we find out that he's not actually Samaritan, he's actually the evil brother, Nemesis. And they reveal it in like the crappiest, lamest fucking way. The Cyrus character is like a super fan of Nemesis, and he's trying to be the new Nemesis. Because he does mentions like Nemesis was viewed as a villain by most of the city, but to the poor people, he was actually a hero because he was fighting against the establishment, but he was also kind of saving people in the poorer neighborhoods, which I wish they would expand upon that. Nemesis seems like he regrets killing his brother, but we don't really know why he killed his brother, because, I think the kid or Cyrus was like, oh, you set up this great plan to save the city by destroying the power plant. Nemesis is like, no. Stallone's like, no, that wasn't the plan. It was just a trap. Like, it seems like he just wanted to kill his brother for some reason. They don't really explain why. Also, the whole political thing is like, it doesn't seem like Nemesis really gave a shit about that. So it's interesting that Cyrus got that. But then Cyrus wanted to do the exact same thing he did, which was blow up the power plant, which once again, I don't know how that gets people more money and job security. That it does not make sense. Oh yeah, because Cyrus is like, oh, come on, good guy, why don't you fight back, good guy? And then he's like, you keep calling me the good guy, but I'm not the good guy. I'm the bad guy. And like literally just like that, and he just wrecks the whole fucking building. I'm like, y'all could have did that better. I saw it coming like an hour and 30 minutes ago, but whatever. So that's the twist. Could have been better. It was pretty obvious, but I think the execution could have been a lot better than what it was. That's my biggest gripe with this whole movie. The more they get hurt, their bodies overheat. He has to cool down, and he eats a lot of ice cream, or his heart will explode. I thought, like I said, that's a good weakness for your character. He's not too OP. Also, he's older, so he's not as strong. Then the whole thing at the end where the people in the building now knows that guy's Nemesis, but they're all dead except for the little kid, and he's on the news. The people suspect that he's Nemesis, and they all believe suspect that he's Samaritan. They all believe he's Samaritan, and they're all hype about it. Once again, they don't have jobs, but they're very happy that Samaritan is back. And the kid, like, on the news lies, and he's like, yeah, he was Samaritan, and that's in the movie. And then Stallone is like hanging in the crowd, like, yeah, kid, thanks for lying about that. And he just walks away, and I'm still like, but the citizens, their position has not changed once since the beginning of this movie to the end of this movie. They're still fucked, but they're happy that Samaritan is out there, I guess. that was the whole thing that didn't make sense. Like, at least in the Batman, he's the symbol of hope. He's still there. He's right there in front of the people, and he's like, I'm gonna do better. And we know he can do better because he's Bruce fucking Wayne, billionaire. He can, donate and build all types of foundations. As opposed to this one, where he's this old dude who's trying to get the fuck out of town. Now that they think that the superhero's back and he's deucing the fuck out, it's like, well, you're shit out of luck. So that was kind of weird how the movie ended. But that was the main spoiler I wanted to talk about. Y'all let me know how y'all felt about that reveal. Did you see it early on in the film? 'Cause I saw it pretty early on. As soon as they said it, I was like, wait a second. Yeah, y'all let me know what you thought about Samaritan in the comments. Once again, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.